So, hey everyone, welcome back to this. And guess what? There's another square body. Let me explain why. So one of the side effects of having a driveway full of various 1970s GM trucks and other vehicles is people figure out, or at least assume, that maybe you know how to work on them. This truck actually belongs to a guy that lives around the corner and down the street from me. I saw the truck show up a few months ago, maybe a year ago. I kind of can't keep track of time. But by word of mouth, he heard that I know how to fix them. So here it is. He asked me to do some work to it, but before I get into that, I'll give you the tour of it, because it's actually a pretty neat truck. It's not what I expected from far away. So this is a 1979 K10 short bed. That should be a good indication that I don't own it because I can't afford short beds. But it seems to be an original-ish truck, except that it had the J.C. Whitney catalog circa 1982 thrown at it, which isn't a bad thing. I grew up with this style of truck, so I dig it. It's got the tube grill, the cyclone or turbine wheels, whatever you want to call them, like the chrome deflectors and other chrome things, CB whip. It's got the chrome doodads there, bed rails, it had a tonneau cover, the whole thing. Like, they stuck a bunch of stuff on it. It is a Cheyenne package. I don't know how old these tires are, but actually I didn't even see what size they are. I'm assuming they're 31s, 32s, 32, 11, 50, 15. Okay. Like I said, is a short bed. Is in good condition. I don't know if it's ever had a repaint or not. I didn't look at that closely. I kind of get the feeling it didn't. Like, this is probably original-ish paint. Let's see what the door jamb looks like comparatively. Yeah, no, the sticker wasn't painted over. It might be original. So interior is pretty decent. The dash is cracked, as they all are. Need some minor stuff, but, you know, overall it's pretty good. Automatic. It has 98,000 on it. It has the standard smell that these trucks have, especially when they have all the interior in them. The people that recognize that smell will know what I'm talking about. So it's a TH350, I think. Looks like it's an NP205. Has lockout hubs on it. Here's a neat part that I didn't expect. It has a big block. According to the owner, he ran the numbers as best he could, and he said this is supposedly a late 60s, like full-size sedan 396. So like a 68, like Caprice or Impala, something like that. I'll try and find the numbers for sure. I'll show you why in a minute here. Obviously, this was swapped in. Whoever did like a decent job. Apparently this was done by a local guy. He got it off somewhat local. A guy passed away. Looks like it has the car accessories on it. It has an old carburetor on it. I'm assuming the swap was done like a long time ago. Still has manifolds, which is nice. The AC didn't make the cut. No fan shroud. Yeah, it's pretty neat that's in there. I definitely was not expecting that. I just assumed it was going to be, 305, 350. Actually, I didn't even see what the truck originally had. It originally had a 350. Okay. So, at some point, it got a big block. And I noticed it had some other interesting modifications done too. Let me show you. I'm guessing maybe the big block was thirsty, because this truck was originally a single tank truck but they made it a dual tank truck in an interesting way. So the bed floors are made for both, usually. I think they're all like this. So it has the hump for the filler neck, but no door. That side has the door. So their solution was they just hogged the hole in the bed. There is a tank on this side. And then I haven't investigated what they did electrically so far yet, but it just has a toggle switch in place where the like the factory tank selection switch would have gone. So I'm not really sure how much it is similar to a factory setup. Like this truck should have a return line for the fuel pump. I'll show you later, but all these hoses are disconnected down here. So I'm not sure like if it's just the feed hooked up and that's it. Or if, you know, if the evap and the return is hooked up too or not. Like I'm not sure how in depth they got. So I'm gonna have to investigate that. Under here we had the standard Rancho steering stabilizer. And then it has the cool like Fall Guy front axle brace. So that's kind of nifty. Then the old spray painted cover. So let's get to why it's here and what we're hoping to accomplish. The owner's initial complaint was that it runs bad, and he's not wrong. He drove it here the day before, the day of the first snowstorm we had here in eastern Pennsylvania. So quick got it here. I cleaned up a spot in the garage and then pulled it in, and I barely got it in the garage. Like you have to double foot it to even get the thing to run. It took like 4 or 5 attempts to get started. So it's got obvious carburetor problems. First issue is the choke isn't even hooked up. The choke's just held open with baling wire. Another issue is that my whole garage now smells like skanky, like old lawnmower gas. So you can tell that fuel looks like real nice in there. So that's not helping anything. The carburetor is almost certainly junk because that's old. And then one of my pet peeves is it has the old quadrajet to square bore adapter plate. And this is going to be like a hot take, but those suck and will always make your engine run like crap. I know people throw them on and I can hear whatever, like your uncle's Camaro had one and hopped Coke cans and whatever, but they're junk. They completely screw up the signal to the carburetor. You're making your air do like 290 degrees in 1 inch. So I told him, I said, do you want to put a quadrajet on it? Or do you want to swap the intake to a square bore and put another, like a new Edelbrock on it? So we're going to put intake and carburetor on it. New distributor. And then fix some of the other things. Like some of the wiring is kind of meh. Belt's loose. There's more like iffy wiring here. Get rid of the old Mortsky repair flexi hose. I'm going to try and find a fan shroud. That might be easier said than done. There's a few different size radiators that came in these trucks, so I got to find one that's the right height. This one has the heavy duty height. These can be like stepped down to a few different levels. The flush one, like this one, is the tallest radiator. So I have to find that fan shroud. Hopefully it fits with whatever setup the engine's in here, where the fan is actually centered in the radiator. Maybe that's why there's no fan shroud on it. Guess I won't know until I mess with it. But that's the game plan, and that's where we're going to start. So, let's get to it. everything all apart, I can show you better now. This motor is like really clean. So, like I said, that's a good sign. Must have like relatively low miles or been rebuilt at some point or something. Like I said, I had to take the valve covers off because they had a big lip on them. But they were leaking anyway, so I was planning on doing it. So might as well just do it now, I guess. I did check out the suffix code, which is right here. It's really hard to see with this light. There we go. Anyway, on Chevy small blocks and big blocks, it's there on the passenger side front of the engine, right where the head meets it. There will be a casting number in the rear. That will tell you what casting number the block is. That will at least tell you, like say, in this case, that's a 396. What this will tell you is exactly what it came out of. And depending on the year, it will even have the serial number or part of the VIN on it. When I ran this suffix code, which I forget what it is, but I'll put it in the video now or whatever, it did come back to a 1969 396 265 horsepower, and it was actually a police-only option code. Looks like it was a 2-barrel engine. Looks like police use only. From what I'm reading, who knows? That's just what the internet says. So the guy was right. This is a late 60s 396. Is not a performance engine. But still, you know, it is what it is. Better than whatever Smog 350 it came in. So now I have to do a lot of cleaning here, get these gasket surfaces cleaned up, the front and the back China walls, etc. There's some goop in the coolant jackets I'll suck out with the shop vac. But overall, it's pretty decent inside. It's better than I expected. Not a lot of crud or nonsense floating around in here. I did, shop vac it off before I pulled the intake. So let me get it all cleaned up, and then I'll get back with you. Okay, I got everything cleaned up here for the most part. Just need to do some final brake cleaning and wiping. Found a little surprise here. When I pulled the intake off, I noticed these two bolts had a larger head, and I didn't really think anything of it at the time because I was just blasting the intake off. Then I saw that I guess at some point, this is a coolant jacket here. This must have been seeping because both of these holes here for the intake bolts, the bolts must have rusted out into them. And what someone did was they just drilled them, made an oval hole basically, and then tapped them for 7/16. So what I did was I just re-drilled them and I put helicoils in them. It was these two, and then I noticed too this front one was about to be junk. So some more, just a quick wipe down here, and then I'll be ready to put the intake on. Let me show you what I got. So here's what I got. I got a Edelbrock Performer intake, not an RPM, just a regular one. This one's a Performer 2.0, part number 2161 for big block Chevy oval port heads. And then I got a 750 Edelbrock carburetor. It's 1411, so the electric choke. So nothing really too extravagant here. I have the exact same setup on my 454 truck, and it runs pretty good. So I figured I'd put it on this. So let me just finish the cleaning here, and then it's time to throw that on. I have the intake gaskets all in there. I always put a little bit of RTV around the coolant ports. You can say I'm wrong or say I'm right, whatever. And I also use RTV on the front and the back China walls instead of the little gaskets they include. But I think most people do that. And then I have a little dollop on the back of the gaskets just to hold them in place so they don't keep falling into the lifter valley. But it's intake time. Okay, here we go. Good news is it's significantly lighter than the other one. Okay, that looks somewhat right. So I haven't found a real good solution to sealing the intake bolts. On Chevys, a lot of the intake bolts that you go into the crankcase, so you'll get oil coming up past the threads and it'll fill your intake wells there. I've been using the Permatex number 2, the non-hardening. I've tried RTV. I've tried like pipe dope or like thread sealer, like PTFE thread sealer. And nothing seems to be like 100% perfect. This stuff's the best I found so far. But I still notice after a while the stuff still kind of tends to leak. So if anyone has something like Surefire that they use, let me know in the comments. Can also fuel up that algorithm a little bit. Okay, intake's on. I have all the bolts started. Fun thing to mention, I went to the hardware store. I thought I'd do the right thing and get like new bolts for all this. And I was going to get the flanged head bolts, the bolts with the washer built into them. And then I saw that they were $4 a piece. And I need 16 of them. So I got regular bolts. They are stainless, 3/8, 16, and stainless washers. But I couldn't believe that a regular 1-inch 3/8 flange head bolt was $3.89 or something like that a piece. They only had stainless, which were like $6 a piece, and then grade 8, which were the ones that were like $4. So fortunately, it didn't get that. But let me just go through here and torque them all up. Click. Click. So some interesting things to point out here as far as quality control and the way things are now with parts. So like I said, I used this exact same intake manifold a couple years ago on my 454 truck with no issues. Now I have issues. So first things first is that the room that they give you to put a bolt in here would never work. You can see I had to use this Allen key bolt, and I can still barely even fit my fingernail in between this and this intake runner. You actually see the marks from me putting the tool on it, trying to get that tightened. So I don't know how in the world they would think you'd get a factory bolt in there, much less those 7/16 thread, 5/8 bolts that were in here before I helicoiled it. So in retrospect, it's a good thing I did that instead of just sending those back in, because that wouldn't even have fit near into that. And the next issue is it has this little plate you put on here to block this exhaust crossover. On some of the Quadrajets, the choke spring will actually go here, the choke thermostat, to open the carburetor or open the choke. So they give you this plate that goes on here, and this hits before the bolt holes line up. I'm going to have to grind probably a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch off there to move this in, because right now it's not even close to lining up with the bolts. The same thing with the gasket. You can't even get the gasket on there to lay flat. So let me do that, and then we can move on to more. Here's a better idea of what I was talking about. You can see that's all the way up against, and I have the other bolt in. And look how far off that hole is. It's like 1/3 of the way through the hole in this plate. So I just got to massage off some right here. So I got that little block off plate on, just a little bit of grinding, now it fits. So now it's time to put the distributor back in before I get too much other junk in my way. Like I want to do it before I put the carburetor, everything on. There's just more stuff I have to lean over to get to the distributor. So just work from back to front now, I guess. I did get a new distributor. It is an Excel part number somewhere. There we are, part number 59130. It's a basic HEI distributor, nothing special. Now you may have noticed I just pulled the other one out all willy-nilly. That's because it's not really that hard to figure out the timing. I should probably make another video on how to do that, because my other video is kind of crappy. But basically, there's a timing mark down there. So right now it's at top dead center on cylinder 1. You just don't know if it's going to be on the compression stroke or the exhaust stroke. So because I can spin both the intake and the exhaust push rods freely, like right now there's actually some lash in them, I I know it's on the base circle of the cam, and this is going to be on the compression stroke. So if I just throw the distributor in here, it'll be close enough to start, and then I can dial it in after that. So I got the distributor in, and I put the valve covers back on the new gasket so I don't like drop a socket down in the motor. Can still do it there though, but you know, kind of lowers the chance. Anyway, now that I got most of the junk out of the way, I even have the trans line like mocked up for the vacuum line there. I'm gonna put the carburetor on. So like I said, I got an Edelbrock 1411. Here's the accessories. There it is in all its shiny goodness. 750 CFM electric choke. They got that attached, some anti-theft stuff going on. But anyway, I'm gonna put that on the motor. And I learned from experience in my truck that they get a little toasty for some reason. So I have this heat insulating gasket Edelbrock sells. I've used this a few times. This works really well. They're even nice if they give you longer studs with it. But that's 9266 if you're interested. And like I said, the carburetor is 1411. So remember when I was just saying how cool they were that they gave you new studs? I partially take that back because they didn't give you any nuts for the studs. So, you know, halfway there. Luckily, I had some in my like vast hoard. I should probably mention that a lot of people are probably yelling at me right now saying I put another spread bore intake on this. These Performer Edelbrock intakes, they're made to take a square bore or a spread bore carb, and they're made in such a way that either one will go on the intake without an adapter. There's nothing being blocked or anything like that. Some people put a plate on there that Edelbrock sells. It's like a sheet metal plate. So they a gasket, the plate, then a gasket. But I've just always put the gasket right on, and I've never had any kind of issues. Especially with the sticker one. This should take up any kind of problems there might be. But yeah, that 100% seals around. The carburetor just seals right to that, and you're good to go. Also, remember to put your brake booster fitting in, or a plug, or whatever is supposed to go there, because the carburetor just comes with an open hole in the back. And if you don't notice that, you're going to have a bad time when it starts, when you have like a 3/8 inch vacuum leak. There we go. All carbureted up. Okay, next up here is this fuel pump. So I think I showed you, but the whole fuel line thing there is a complete disaster. Just lines wrapped all over. And part of the issue is that this pump is not clocked properly. This style pump, you can actually take these screws out and re-clock this bottom piece to where it lines up with stuff. When they put this on, they did not do that. And I would do that, but this pump is so old that I know if I take that apart, the diaphragm in there is going to tear or not seal or something. So I just got a replacement pump. It really wasn't very expensive, but that's just a stock pump. And you can see how the lines are supposed to be oriented. This is the line from the tank, and then the threaded port is to the carburetor. So that would explain why, you know, nothing lined up on the truck. This is a Carter, which I've already gotten dirty. Part number, there we go, M4530. I've had a lot of problems with new mechanical fuel pumps recently. I haven't tried a Carter before, but the AutoZone ones, think we went through like 2 or 3 in a few months on the last truck I put a mechanical fuel pump on. So that's not really good good news. Hopefully this one has better luck, because I don't really know what the other scenario is or what the solution is. An Edelbrock fuel pump is like over $100, so that's a little crazy. So hopefully this little boy takes care of it. So here I am, I'm reassembling stuff. I bent a metal fuel line to go up to a fuel filter to rubber fuel hose. I try and use as much metal as possible on everything because things tend to light on fire less that way. I'll just put the alternator back on. I just remembered that when I took it apart, I noticed that somebody had done some modifications here to these brackets. You can see there, that hole's been made wider. And looks like it was done by a torch. Same with the upper bracket. It all looks good to get to whatever happened there. It's like oxyacetylene torch fabrication in action. So I'm going to see if I can make that a little bit better. I don't have any big block stuff. I'm not even sure if this is big block stuff. Like, who knows what that's off, what they had to do to make that fit. I did pop one of the bolts I put in out of the intake up here and put in this stud. So it's 9/16 to whatever the spine thread is. I had ones that were 3/8 on both sides, but they were too short. So I'm going to try and repair that lower bracket and then put the alternator, line the alternator on and see if I can get it bolted here. It goes on here, and then it goes on the alternator, then it goes up to here. Gonna see if I can maybe cut that ear off this bracket here and make something a little bit better and keep the belt, straight at the same time. I just remembered that I have something I can cheat off of to see. So yeah, that's what is factory. All the brackets on this truck are factory. This is my 78 big block truck. So that should go to a stud there, go into the intake. I don't know what they did on this lower portion. Yeah, whatever I have going on is nothing like that. So I'm guessing they just hacked small block brackets to somewhat fit. So I'll just do what I can with what I got here. I cut the previously fabricated ear off and just made my own out of that same metal I was using to patch the frame on my Chevelle. So it looks like that might be a good setup there. The rest of the mount's in good condition. It doesn't look bent or anything, and I checked, and the belt seems to be going where it's supposed to be going. So let me weld that on there and try and make it look somewhat presentable. So everything is slowly coming together here. I got the radiator hoses on, I got the heater hoses on. I had to swap out the heater fitting. Once again, I looked at the engine bay on my big block truck, and when I started working on this, there was a 3/4 inch nipple in the intake, and it turns out there should have been a 5/8 because there's a 3/4 inch on the return on the radiator here. So that was no big deal to swap it out. See, the radiator hoses kind of fit. It took like 6 hoses to get the right ones. I did find a fan shroud. Surprisingly, it was actually somewhat simple. I thought it was going to be a nightmare. They make this shroud new. It was only like $40-something on eBay, and it pretty much fits. I'm going to have to do some slight rigging on it here. But I put the AC line back where it belongs in the clips here because that was just kind of like draped over the radiator. I'll put the part number for this fan shroud like here in the video right now. I found 2 different numbers that in theory should have worked. I think they both come back to being the same fan shroud anyway. But if you search that part number, it should come up with this fan shroud. I'll put the dimensions that it is too in here, just in case you need such a thing. The only issue with this is that I think it may have something to do more with how the engine's mounted. I'm not sure what they did really for mounts on this, but there's tons of room at the top, and then it's actually hitting a little bit at the bottom. I'm probably going to see if I can just like pull down the bottom a little bit, or worst case scenario, trim it, because I think it is intended to be the fan shroud that belongs on there. I think the motor is just sitting too low in the engine bay, and I don't want to get into figuring out what kind of mounts I would need to like pitch the engine up to where it would work in the fan shroud, because it didn't even have a fan shroud on it before, so this is still an improvement. without getting into re-engineering everything. Because I saw over here too that if I raise the engine up at all, this exhaust manifold is probably going to hit right here coming into the frame. So it looks like I'm just trading one problem for another. So I climbed under it and I solved the engine hitting the fan shroud mystery. The motor mounts are completely wasted. They actually look like they used the stock 70s, like the mounts the truck came with, stock 79 mounts. But they're completely blown out and pretty much the bolts are just laying right on the frame. So I'm assuming that just putting new factory mounts in it should raise the motor up at least to like, I don't need like an 1/8 inch and it'll be good to go. It'll probably do more than that. So I'm going to put motor mounts and the trans kickdown cable on the list and move on to something else. I had a hunch and I pulled the spark plugs out that were in the truck, which are new. And they are these Autolite AP24s. First of all, I don't hold Autolite in a real high regard, nor do I put platinums in a carbureted vehicle for the most part. And on top of that, these are probably the plugs that would have came up if you looked up a 79 K10. And they're wrong. When you look up this engine, you get those. There's quite a difference, especially when you figure out like where they sit and the style of plug. I knew right by looking at the heads that they shouldn't have had a tapered seat plug-in. They should have had a washer seat just by how the head's designed. You can see that wasn't really penetrating in the cylinder as far as it should. I'm going to measure this to make sure I don't like put a hole in the piston, but everywhere I look up for this engine, like a 69 396, lists these long washer seat spark plugs, which are a R45 XL. So this probably wasn't helping its running condition at all. I mean, they look, they were burning okay, but I can't see it being beneficial to not have the plugs going in the cylinders fully. Well, my suspicion was correct. I took this useless white zip tie and I hooked the head of it in the cylinder and pulled out and pinched it right where it ended with the head. And look at that. So this won't even go all the way in the cylinder. I mean, I'm probably losing a little bit, but I mean, it was probably, I mean, that's ridiculous. That wasn't even halfway in the cylinder. So these are the right ticket here. Well, it's another day and I got more parts. I'm gonna tackle the motor mounts here. You can actually see, I wanted to see if that manifold would hit. It doesn't. And actually you can see the mounts are pretty bad. I don't know whether it shows up on camera, but I can lift the engine like 1/2 inch with a short pry bar. So luckily these don't look as bad to do as on a 2-wheel drive. They actually look, I don't want to say simple, but at least easier. So there's what's left of the motor mounts. The rubber is pretty much blown out of them and they're just sitting right on the frame rail. But usually on a 2-wheel drive, these 3 bolts right here that secure the mount to the frame are actually inside the cross member, so it's a real nightmare to get on them. But on a 4-wheel drive, apparently it's not too bad. I don't know how well you can see this one. It's about the same condition. It's sitting on the actual, like, the safety stops for it. So I'm going to try and put a pull jack, like, under the engine and do one mount at a time here and see how it goes. Okay, there's one mount out. It's actually very easy. None of the bolts were even, I mean, they were tight, but they weren't, you know, like unbearably tight. An electric ratchet, you took them out. I just have this pull jack here under the oil pan with a block of wood so I don't dent the pan, pushing up on the engine so I can squeeze the motor out. Then I have another pole stand under the back axle so I don't tip the truck over and die. So pretty sure the mounts were the issue here. Here's the driver's side mount. You can see like it's kind of there. When the weight was on, it was more squished. But there is where it's supposed to start with. So that's, you know, well over a 1/4 inch lower, and then it's sagged down towards the inside of the frame. So I'm gonna put this one in and see how the other one goes, and then see how we're sitting as far as the fan is. Just got the motor mounts in. So that was the driver's side one I already showed you, and there was the equally bad passenger side one. You can see the new fanciness up in there. And the good news is that the fan now spins. If I can get in here to show you. See, no more hitting. And actually, fan blade all the way down, I can fit my fingers in between the blade and the shroud, which before there was no clearance. So hopefully these mounts will stay good for a while and save the new fan shroud. So I have everything pretty much all buttoned up here. Got all the linkages, vacuum lines, wires hooked up, etc. Has some fluids in it. The last thing I changed here, because I'm kind of snowed in, is I put what was the proper coolant temp and the proper oil pressure sensor in. And then I had to run a new wire for the coolant temp because that was broken somewhere. But the reason I had to change them, here's the old ones. These are the ones off the actual 396 when it was in the Impala or whatever it was in. And I believe that these were just for warning lights. And this truck has gauges. So the difference is, on these older vehicles or whatever uses this style stuff, if it's just for a warning light, this will normally be open or closed to ground. I have a ground wire going to it. And at a certain whatever, be it coolant temp or oil pressure, this will either just connect or disconnect, which will trigger the warning light. So say at, I don't know, 225 degrees, this just throws the light on. Or this at like 5 psi of oil pressure just throws the light on. So the issue is when you have a gauge, in this case, the coolant temp showed nothing, and the oil pressure only showed 60. If you turn the key off, just went to 0. So you turn the key on, and the engine was running, it was right to 60. So these are just like an on-off circuit, that's it. Ones for an actual gauge will actually vary the resistance on whatever the ohm range is. I don't know what these are. Say it's 0 ohms to 5 ohms, or 0 ohms to 10, or whatever. And that'll actually make your gauge sweep, depending on what the actual reading is, the exact pressure, the exact coolant temp, or whatever. So now all that works. And I fiddled with some other stuff. I got it pretty dialed in. So I think it's about time I show you how it runs. There we go. I'm just letting it warm up. See, it runs pretty smooth now. I know I didn't have any video of it running beforehand, but trust me, it runs a lot better. Like I said earlier, it just has quiet exhaust on it, like stock mufflers. Still has pretty high oil pressure, but at least it's not pegged. Coolant gauge works now, voltage gauge works. That should all be good. We got a deer on the seat. Let me see if we can get it out of here and go for a drive. Today is the first day. It's been above freezing pretty much in like a month. And 2 or 3 weeks ago we got like, I don't know, 14 something inches of snow on top of the 5 inches of snow we got the week before. So this is the first chance I've had to be able to escape the garage with this truck. So we'll see how it does. Oh, it accelerates. We got that going for us. There's a
random dog. Yeah, this thing drives pretty good for a four-wheel drive truck. Which, by the way, do drive significantly worse than a two-wheel drive truck with the front leaf springs and such. Plus, I'm sure this truck has leafs on it by the looks of it. Thing's pretty good. The tires aren't even that square.
going to be the end of this video. As you can see, the truck actually runs pretty good. That was legitimately the first time I'd driven it other than driving it just from my driveway into the garage here. And I thought like something would go wrong, that I had to, like kind of tweak or whatever, and honestly everything's like good. As it started running a little while, it went down to like, a normal amount of oil pressure, like 30 or 40 PSI at idle, up to 60, so the gauge is working. Coolant temperature never went above half the gauge. No noises. The thing actually drives like surprisingly good. The transmission definitely isn't stock. Definitely has like a shift kit in it or something. Like who knows what the the original owner or whatever did with it. But this will probably be about it for this. Hopefully the owner is happy with it. And then there's going to be videos appearing on the screen here blocking my face soon. But as usual, remember to, like things and subscribe to things and such, be it this channel or others. And then I'll see you on the next one.